Hello, everyone. I'm really excited to get started. My name is Sam Bragg. I am an outdoor educator for CorpsTHAT. CorpsTHAT's mission is trying to bridge the gap between outdoor education and the deaf community. We have three main avenues in which we do this: outdoor recreation, environmental education, and workforce training pertaining to the outdoor industry. We are a small nonprofit organization. All of our staff are volunteers operating this organization, so it's a really small and proud team that we have here. I'm really excited to be moderating this panel today. This topic is actually very close and dear to my heart, myself being an alum of the NOLS expeditions. I did 3 different expeditions for the grad program that I was in. I've also done a bunch of different wilderness medicine trainings as well. So again, this topic is very dear to me. I'm very excited to welcome our 3 panelists tonight. We're going to ask them questions, introducing themselves, telling us where they're from, what programs that they did, and where they work currently and live currently. So just some general information about these panelists. Let's start with Anthony. Hello, my name is Anthony. I'm from the cold, dark Alaskan wilderness. Now I'm currently living in Colorado. Right now I work at Costco. That's because I'm working through my master's program. So I plan to work in outdoor education very soon, which is very exciting to me. Okay, Lauren. Hi, my name is Lauren. I'm from Massachusetts. Recently, I was living in California working on a homestead property for 3 years now, transferring back to Massachusetts. So I'm in between jobs right now. I did an outdoor leadership program. They're called OLPs in 2015. And when I was 15, my first outdoors experience was on Outward Bound, initialized as OB. I did a trip for a week there, and really that experience impacted me. At that point, I was becoming an outdoors person and got really immersed in that community. I'm really excited to discuss more in this panel. Last but not least, Rupert. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rupert Doubler, sign name Rupert. I was the first kid in the family, so for those who signed, that'll help you remember. I'm a certified deaf interpreter currently. Before that, I was in the outdoor leadership in NOLS. I did an Alaskan trip for 3.5 weeks in the backcountry. Same thing as Lauren, that experience that I had really impacted me. Prior to that, growing up, I didn't have much exposure to the outdoors, and I got really immersed when I did that program at NOLS. Currently, I'm living in Maryland. Awesome. Now I'm curious, what is your relationship with the outdoors? Were you exposed to the outdoors growing up a lot, or did you not have much experience until you got involved with the programs that you guys did? And for this question, we'll start with Rupert, since you did talk about it a little bit already, so just go ahead and expand on that. So growing up, I was really into books and reading. So when I was in the car, I'd be holed up in the car. I wouldn't really pay attention to anything else. I'd just be immersed in my book. I was really interested in technology as well, but I always felt like something was missing. So as an undergraduate student, I studied environmental international policy, and I got really fascinated with that. And I decided I wanted to learn more about what I'm fighting to protect. So I actually, jumped off the deep end kind of and went to the wilderness, figuring out how to plan that trip and how that was going to go. I had worked at camps prior as a staff member or caretaker, but I didn't really have a fully immersive outdoor experience. I did have a bed at those prior experiences I had. I had all my creature comforts, and I really wanted to push that all aside and do something uncomfortable. So I decided to go do the NOLS Alaska trip. And during the summer, Alaska is not really dark. So most of the time I had plenty of light to sign, and that was a big plus. But I was very nervous. How was I going to communicate with the people I was with? So I decided to take a WFR course. That helped me get a little more comfortable with the outdoors and built on my knowledge that I had a tiny bit of growing up. And so now I really enjoy the outdoors after all that. Anthony, would you like to go ahead and talk about your experiences? So really, I grew up in the outdoors because my parents themselves, they were very outdoorsy. We camped a lot as a family, and I joined Boy Scouts. I was hiking all the time. There's just plenty of experiences to have in the Alaskan wilderness. But one of the important reasons my parents were very strict about me going outdoors is they wanted to limit my TV time and technology time. If they noticed I was staying indoors too much on technology, they'd say, go outside, go outside. At first, when I was a kid, it might have been a negative experience, but now I really appreciate that as an adult. Anyways, could you go back a little bit? Okay, everything all good now? So in college, I went to Gallaudet University and I got my degree in team building, so leadership building. And I joined a program that was really immersive in hiking, backpacking. We also added rock climbing to that program, as well as environmental education. So all of that I've been doing since I was growing up. That's my experience thus far. Awesome, very cool. Okay, now Lauren. So me, I've loved the outdoors since I was very little. I would always play outdoors in my backyard. My favorite thing to do was to pick up rocks and look at the creatures underneath, mostly insects. And I was really fascinated with bugs growing up. I also climbed trees. I got really into that growing up. I'd always try and climb every tree I saw just because they had different shapes, different branches to climb over, and figuring out how to climb different types of trees was awesome. And that's transitioned into rock climbing as an adult. I really love rock climbing now. Growing up, I also would go on an annual camping trip with my family. So together, I felt like really a sense of community, and that brought up kind of my love for the outdoors too. Then I went on the Outward Bound 1 week expedition when I was 15. That trip, I did have a few snowshoeing trips as well growing up. When I went to Gallaudet University as an undergraduate student, I wasn't super into the outdoors. I was really busy with school and classes. I didn't have much time to balance all that. A little bit confusing. But once I graduated, I did an outdoor leadership program in Greenfield, Massachusetts. That program taught me how to be an outdoor instructor, doing kayaking, rock climbing. It was a really awesome expedition that we did. We would have a couple 1 or 2 week backpacking trips as well. After that, I worked at Conservation Corps for 2 years. I did that for 2 summers. I also worked at Aspen Camp for 1 summer, and I really enjoyed that experience. I really noticed that I enjoy teaching outdoor education with children. I really want to bring kids outdoors the same way I did when I grew up. I want to be able to provide that, facilitate that experience for kids and get them really into the outdoors. That's my objective in my career. So I noticed you guys have a very similar theme. You all love the outdoors, regardless of whether you grew up in the outdoors or not. It's really dear to my heart that you guys have a similar theme, having that intuition for the outdoors as adults. So now that leads me to ask you guys, expand a little bit on your expeditions. I know you guys mentioned a teeny bit about it so far, but what exactly did you do? How long was the expedition? Were you the only deaf person in the group, or were there other deaf people in your expeditions? What were the interpreting situations like? We'll go ahead and start with Lauren for that one. So when I did the OLP, we had 3 trips. My first trip was a Raquette River trip. We did canoeing for a week, and I really enjoyed that. I was the only deaf person in my group, but I had 2 awesome interpreters there. We became friends on that trip, and I really enjoyed that one. So that was the first one. The second trip is called the November trip. We backpacked through the Aledax for a week and a half. I did that one alone as the only deaf person too, but I had 2 different interpreters with me. They were good interpreters, but they weren't good fits for outdoor interpreting. So I ended up feeling like I was teaching them a lot more than they were able to interpret for me. And I didn't really feel focused on that trip because those interpreters were not really meant to be working in the outdoor industry at that time. I felt very alone, very frustrated, very isolated. My two outdoor instructors, they saw that I was a completely different person in that environment, in the classroom and in the outdoor trip. They noticed my behaviors, my sense of expression was very different because I felt very alone. And that was really a wake-up call for my instructors. So that last winter trip we did, the third one, I was with another classmate who signed really well too. And that trip had a hearing interpreter and a CDI team. A CDI is a certified deaf interpreter, and that team was really awesome. That was my best trip, that winter trip, because I felt very focused. I could be myself, and the interpreting was perfect. It's really, really important, I feel, that interpreters are at their A game for these outdoors expeditions. And Rupert, would you like to comment? Yeah. So I had one expedition with NOLS, the Alaskan 3.5-week trip. My whole group was hearing, nobody knew signs. I had one interpreter with me. That interpreter actually just had graduated their ITP, their interpreter training program, at a local community college. That person was a really motivated interpreter, but not an avid outdoorsy person. They did have experience hiking, so that was something. So that trip was for outdoor educators. So most of the people there had already been very experienced and well-versed in the outdoors. And so that group was very avid. Me and my interpreter, we were newbies. So we struggled at the physical level and the mental level to keep up with the rest of the group. That was really a challenge. And since there was only one interpreter, they never really had any off time or breaks. They were always on. There was a lot of incidental learning opportunities that were missing because of, if you're in a line, as you're on an expedition, you're usually in a single file line. People usually chat amongst each other. How am I supposed to chat? I have to look at the person behind me and walk, backwards in order to be able to communicate with them. And so having two people as a double file, that's not really following the leave no trace principle. So it was really challenging having to follow that single file line. And also having that interpreter be a part of camp duties and camp life. The interpreter's already been working all day, hiking all day, and now at camp they have all these duties: cooking, cleaning, and we also had learning at campsites too. So bless that interpreter's heart. At the end of our 3.5-week expedition, we never wanted to see each other again. Wow. It was that bad. I felt really frustrated after that trip. My access to information decreased so quickly. Of course, how else was it supposed to go? I also felt really guilty asking for the interpreter to give me some extra information. I felt like that became really toxic very quickly. It was a burden to the interpreter and me. My instructors were great on the trip and very motivated, but they didn't know anything about the deaf community. They were not really willing to bend the rules. So that caused a lot of frustration for me often on the trip, and I became very distant from the rest of the group. I was kind of following them at the back. I felt analog, and that really sucked. I didn't really feel connected to my group at all. Many of the things that I use now to communicate with the hearing world, for example, voice recognition apps, pen and paper, writing communication, didn't have much of that in the backcountry. I felt really restricted and had to be very heavily dependent on the interpreter. So really, I've heard some other stories about people having two interpreters, and Lauren, you had a CDI and a hearing interpreter team. So I feel really good about that now that that's being remedied and practiced a little better. And Anthony. So I really had four. So I had a WFR trip, which I just finished. I had an internship with NOLS Alaska, and I did a risk management course outdoors. So I'm not going to talk about those any further, but my major NOLS trip, my 8-day backpacking expedition in the mountains, We really went all the way into the backcountry for that one. I was really lucky. I had 2 interpreters and 2 instructors who all knew sign. So they couldn't interpret perfectly, but they were able to sign and gesture, which was perfect for me. I also did think ahead and told the NOLS that I was hard of hearing. So they sent me some materials to read before the expedition. So they sent me the books to read before the expedition. So these 2 here. So I was able to read those. And then when I took the course, I already knew a lot of surface level information. So I didn't have to fill in as many gaps. That being said, my instructors still had to figure out what to do and change a lot of the course on the fly. So for example, the Leave No Trace class, Leave No Trace, Sam is saying. Right, Leave No Trace, LNT abbreviated. Instead of having it be a lecture, the instructors were willing to do it as a group or like split it into groups and act it out. So that was really awesome that they changed it into a much more visual friendly manner for the deaf community. So I had pretty good discourse with the teachers and instructors and the rest of my group. I was still a deaf participant in a group full of hearing people. The interpreters and instructors were helpful that they knew sign language, but I still had to maintain boundaries with students as a student and them being instructors. It didn't really feel right to have an interpreter be my buddy while I'm trying to communicate with my group. That doesn't really make sense. If I'm going out into an expedition, I'm supposed to be with my group, not with my interpreters as my buddies. So it was nice that some of the people in my group were willing to learn a little bit of signs while I was there. Obviously, they're not proficient signers, but it was nice that they could do some little stuff, especially the important signs. That being said, it is still difficult with the single file line following Leave No Trace. All that communication that gets from one side to the other with spoken communication doesn't translate for me. Get out of here. It doesn't work for me. So in general, the class dynamics, the teacher dynamics, the interpreting dynamics all worked out, but it was still challenging having that deaf and hearing cultural gap. And sometimes I'd have to pull somebody aside and have a discussion with them. I wasn't able to just yell at somebody and briefly convey information. I had to be pulled aside or pull somebody else aside. Would anybody like to add anything? Yeah, Lauren. So all of us had that experience as the only deaf person in the hearing group, and we had to like try our best to teach some of these hearing people some signs and try and integrate. But then it finishes, you know, the expedition ends, and that's it. One time when I was in Outward Bound, when I was 15, everybody was deaf. There was one hearing instructor, but he signed, and then the other instructor was deaf. All the members and participants were deaf. There was really no cultural or language barriers or tension there. We all were able to communicate really well. So we need more of those deaf expeditions. Or at least, you know, it's good that the instructors know signs. It's good that maybe some participants might know some signs. It's better than being isolated, but if it was all run by deaf people, that would be awesome. Okay, there's interpreters are letting us know there's some noise, so hopefully we were able to remediate that. Quiet as a mouse here. I don't know. Am I quiet? Okay, I guess it's fine. I didn't even join audio, so I'm noticing a common theme amongst you guys. Our experience being the only deaf person on expeditions, some barriers that we've experienced, maybe some things that we missed. We didn't get full immersive experience, missing some of that incidental information. Starting an expedition, we kind of have to teach too. We have to explain about our deaf culture. I'm wondering if any of you guys have any specific experience having to teach deaf culture to other participants and instructors. So I'm Sam, you're Lauren, you guys are your own people and your own experiences. You guys feel like you're that deaf person on the expedition, right? Yeah, I think we can all share that experience. I definitely felt like, quote, that deaf person, unquote. Anthony, did you feel that way? Rupert, yeah, my expedition was 3.5 weeks. So we did get past that. I wasn't, quote, that deaf person, unquote, but it took a while. It was like the very end, and only a few of the group were willing to learn some signs and some more things about the deaf community. But after the expedition, I'm sure everybody kind of just gave that up and moved on with their lives. Yeah, Lauren or Anthony. Hold on. Sorry, guys, sorry. Both of you were going at the same time. Let's go ahead with Lauren. No, Lauren's saying Anthony. Okay, Anthony. I am hard of hearing, so I'm not fully deaf. So I kind of go back and forth. That being said, it is a challenge to fully have good discourse. I do have to kind of advocate for myself. This is what you can do to communicate with me. This is how you can help me communicate better with you, and vice versa. So half of the group was willing to gesture and communicate with me. The other half was strictly spoken. They wouldn't kind of bend their usual communication methods to communicate with me. So when I was 15, or when I did my expedition in 2015, the OLP, I maybe befriended like 3 out of 15 people in my group. The rest of them didn't really connect with me as well and as deeply because of that communication barrier. Okay, so I'm curious. No, go ahead, Rupert. Also, my expedition was a while ago, over 10 years ago. So technology is very different. It was a lifetime ago when I had no facial hair, no grays. That expedition, the technology options and access was limited. So solar panels were huge back then. We couldn't really bring them on expeditions like this. I have a cochlear implant myself, and that helps me hear, especially in the front country. When I'm going into the back country, I become fully deaf. I don't have access. I have to give up my cochlear implant. I have no way of charging my battery back in the back country. That was really hard on a whole nother level for me. Modern technology has really improved. Experiences of deaf individuals in these environments will improve because of this. But we still provide a unique challenge for the expeditions like this. Being one deaf person in a group of hearing people, it's not impossible. There's just so many barriers and so many challenges in that setting. A lot of times deaf people befriend interpreters and they don't befriend the group that they're in. That becomes tricky to navigate. Should the expeditions be all deaf? No, I don't necessarily agree with that personally. I just think there should be a balance. Hearing people who are willing to sign, deaf people, maybe hearing people who aren't willing to sign, just a balance of everybody. 10 years ago, there had been historically only deaf expeditions. They did have that a couple years prior to mine, but when I went to mine, there wasn't any only deaf participant groups. And I think that'd be a great idea, actually. I'd be thrilled to join deaf expeditions myself, if that was still a thing that they did. Anyone else want to add anything? Nothing? Anthony, yeah. Honestly, I would prefer a fully deaf group just because the concepts, the attitudes, some of the people in my group were, some of them were open-minded and some of them weren't. Some of them didn't think that a deaf person could do an expedition like that. So I think it's important to have a fully deaf group so that we can prove to hearing people and have them keep their mouth shut. Like, yeah, of course we could do something like this. Are you kidding? I'm curious, did you all get any emails or messages from Outward Bound or NOLS or anything before you started your expeditions about risk, how to mitigate and manage risk? Do you guys have any thoughts or experience related to topics in that area? No. Lauren and Anthony both saying no. I'm very proactive personally, so I would reach out and say, hey, I'm hard of hearing. How do we discuss this? How can we navigate this? Because I'm stubborn. I don't want to arrive there happy-go-lucky and just have them, oh shit, what do we do? So I'm willing to go out of my way to reach out ahead of time. One time they did call me, but I'm saying, hey, I please email. It's a lot better if you speak to me over email. I do have an advantage. The NOLS Alaskan property is really close to where I live. So I worked really close by, and there was a university there on a farm. So everything was super close to me. So it was easier for me because I was able to get out there and talk to them in person, work out all those details in person. It wasn't NOLS, it was outward bound. Neither outward bound, but when I took my WFR, when I finished and got my certification, they let me know that I had failed because I can't hear, specifically for radio signals. But they said, you still pass, but you will have a special note on your certificate that you can't use a radio. So I was like, okay, that was the one thing I can throw in relating to this topic. I'm curious, did you feel that you have any perspectives or gains as deaf individuals to give to these groups, or just outdoor education? Do you guys feel like there is a gain to being deaf? What's your perspective? What's the pros and positives of being a deaf person in these environments? What can you guys give to expeditions like this? Rupert, go ahead. So for my educators, it really elevated their risk management game to a whole new level. They had to think about workarounds for someone who's deaf. They had to differently approach a lot of situations and really had to completely reconstruct everything. If there's any can'ts, you need to challenge that. Like Anthony said, we can, as deaf people, do these expeditions. Hearing people often will say, you cannot be in the front of the line for a single file. You need to be in the back or in the middle so you can see. Towards the end, they let me go in the front. So that discourse of them assessing risk, it's a good thing. So we can't just look at it linearly in a hearing perspective. Deaf people have so many different abilities and things that they can bring to this game. Everything needs to be restructured and assessed. Another thought that I had, outdoor education courses, we teach certain concepts outdoors different than we do in the front country. So it's really cool to analyze and understand the different signs that we use. So that's the sign we use for navigation. You can use gestures to describe the landscape. So this is like water. That was like a valley I just did before that. This is like water running really fast. So instead of using all these English words to describe it, or if it's like really, really windy, you can't hear anything, you can describe the landscape with gestures or sign language. So risk aversion. So we took up a conversation about that. And so I was able to like kind of explain how to use gestures instead of speech, especially when I can't hear. So that was one thing. That's an awesome example, Rupert. I love that example. Anyone else? Rupert's point is really valid because you can really elevate your risk assessment game. For example, like when it's really windy, you can't hear anything. So you can teach hearing people how to sign or use their hands to describe the landscape or different technologies to use that. So it's really awesome. Like in sports, so Demi Hoy, the first deaf baseball player, they had to be very creative and figure out different gestures to communicate. And now a lot of those gestures have picked up and are used by modern baseball leagues all the time. So deaf people really bring something to the table in these situations. That's perfect what you say about, especially it applies to rock climbing a lot too. So when your partner might be out of sight, hearing people often will use their voice to hear and to communicate. But if it's really windy and your partner's really far, what do you do? So for me and my rock climbing partner, we always communicate through the rope. So like 3 tugs means Now I'm at the hangar. 2 tugs means go ahead and lower me. We have so many different examples with that pertaining to rock climbing, but that's one of them. So my partner might have done a different route, and like if it wasn't clearly explained with voice, it's really hard, but with deaf people we can just look and analyze and see those paths and understand that a lot easier, and that's really expansive and a lot safer. If you, especially if you can't see your partner, you have to figure out a way to communicate through the rope. So that's like one of the big deaf gains, deaf perspective. Definitely. Anyone have anything more to add? Rupert, one more thing. Often expeditions will have a couple days of a solo portion. Mine wasn't like that, but it is interesting to have discussions about other people's experiences. The idea of silence. What does that mean, silence? In the backcountry, people still chat in that single file line. There's not a lot of silence. So that we do have that solo component of silence in the backcountry. And camp life, we chat a lot as well. So for me, I'm used to that silence, that solitude. So my experience is so different when we have those solo moments on a journey. So they can really analyze that. And we had a good conversation about that. My perspective, my enjoyment for the outdoors, things that I've noticed that maybe other people miss. Sometimes they're right in plain sight. And because I'm not busy chatting, I'm able to be very attentive to things that I'm seeing. So that's one thing too, being very visual and paying attention to that. Giving them my increased appreciation for silence in the backcountry. That's true. I'm thinking about things that I did in my own trip. Like I would reflect and just daydream alone. Like, what am I going to do when I get to camp? What am I going to do? What's my role? While everyone else is chatting, I'm just thinking amongst myself. You know, that's the deaf experience. So Rupert, I know you did mention a little bit about technology. Now that we have cochlear implants and really advanced technology, can you still use your cochlear implants on expeditions? There's also satellite phone equipment, different things like that. Now that there's better technology and more accessibility in that technology, we don't really need radios as much anymore. Do you guys have any experience with the new technology? Any opinions with that technology development? Anthony? Technology now has definitely improved. We have like VRIs, video relay interpreting. So in front country, obviously we can do things like that and have an interpreter through our phones. We also have text to speech recognition, and it works even better now than it did in the past. The last thing I'm thinking of that's very important, an OtterBox. So I can put my hearing aids in them and have it all be a waterproof container and put that in my pack. So those are the three things that I think of when I think of newer technological advances. Lauren, this is a little off the point, but this is funny. Do you feel like, so I have hearing aids myself, and in that single file line, sometimes I hate hearing all that speech and I'll take them off and I feel like I'm able to be at peace and focused. I really don't like when I can hear, but I can't understand what they're saying, especially if they're laughing. Like, what am I missing? I start to get paranoid. I start freaking out. Like, what am I missing? So I take them off and I'm able to focus and be quiet and just focus on my hike better. And then I'll turn them on at camp or have them on at camp. I'm wondering, Anthony, if you feel that way too. I know for me especially, it's challenging because when I have my hearing aids out, I kind of understand a little better. But mine are analog, so they're water resistant, but not waterproof. So if it's raining or if there's weather, it's like, so half my trip, I had a lot of weather, so I had to put my hearing aids away and I was devastated a little bit. I had to accept that. So I had a similar experience whether I wanted to or not, Lauren. Now I'm wondering, we've discussed a bunch of different topics in these expeditions, but what would make future expeditions better? Do you guys have any insight to making expeditions more successful in the future? Like maybe all of them being deaf, the instructors and the students, or any additional thoughts? Lauren? For me, it'd be really important to have two amazing interpreters who really are meant to be in the outdoor interpreting field. I think that's the most important thing, that they love outdoors and are avid, and that they can take care of themselves and just fulfill the role of interpreting. The best thing would be a whole entire deaf expedition, deaf crew. That's my first choice. But if that's not possible, having two seasoned deaf outdoor interpreters with maybe a friend or two that are deaf, so we can have some sort of dialogue and I'm not the only deaf person. I really would like to have that dialogue in my own language. And then in the larger group, obviously I can still conversate with hearing people more. I don't mind at all, but I'd just rather not be the only deaf person. In a smaller group of deaf individuals with the larger group of hearing individuals, I feel more comfortable speaking to everybody. That would make the experience a lot more tolerable. Anthony, plus, if there's 2 or 3 other deaf people with me, it shows hearing people more what deaf people can do, instead of just being the only one surrounded by a bunch of hearing people. And so it'd be a more inviting and welcoming environment for us to kind of have those hearing people learn from us. This isn't just for expeditions, this is just in general. Being the only deaf person, it's easy to be not believed in and like oppressed and told that that's their opinion and this is the only person. But if you have a group, you feel like you have that support, and validation is easier to find from hearing people because they see that it's not just one deaf person who believes a certain thing, it's the whole group. But I would love to have a deaf only expedition or a signing group, not necessarily just deaf, but as long as everyone communicates in sign, that would be really nice. The amount of deaf people in the outdoor field, the career community, is so small. And so we do have to be mindful of our capacity. That's why CorpsTHAT is really champ. They really are focused on building that capacity so we can get a larger and larger awareness and community in the deaf outdoors area. So that's one way. NOLS has their own way of networking, and so do all these other organizations. So working together and building that capacity would really help. Obviously, 2 interpreters would be most important. So specifically outdoor interpreters and those who've already had their own prior expeditions or experience too. So it's important that they have good interpreting skills and they've already been outdoors before, immersed in that kind of thing. And almost like you got to know each other before you even get on the expedition. You kind of have to like each other a little bit to be out there for 3.5 weeks in the wilderness. Hold on one sec. Okay, go ahead, Anthony. Just my 2 cents. If the instructors themselves aren't deaf, at least teachers who maybe have some sort of experience signing. When I had that, I felt so relieved, because if my instructor didn't know any signs, it would be even more challenging to just have the educational portion of that trip. I'd feel even more of a barrier. What do you think about deaf instructors? I think that's possible. Yeah, deaf instructors, absolutely. And they could definitely lead a deaf expedition as well. The hearing outdoors community feel that they must have a hearing instructor as well. So I feel like that's fine as long as the instructor knows sign. Then that's totally welcome in the signing community. We could have 2 deaf instructors with 1 hearing instructor who could sign. Like, I think it's so possible, and that definitely could happen. Lauren, is Aspen all deaf? Yeah, Aspen is completely deaf. So when I was a camp counselor, yeah, everybody on my staff was deaf. Everybody we worked with was deaf. Yeah, I totally support the idea of a deaf instructor. there's really no reason why an instructor couldn't be deaf. You can get all your certifications the same, you can get the same experiences, everything's a yes. So I think, yeah, deaf instructors would be awesome. And I think that'd work out perfectly. I will say one challenge might be professional boundaries between a deaf instructor and a group of deaf people. There may be some boundary difficulties because we're all part of the same community. We have to separate a professional boundary as well as being deaf people all together as a community. All right, so we are past 8:40, and I promised the audience that I want to give them a chance for Q&A. So let's go ahead and pick out some. I know we've been getting a lot in the chat throughout this whole time. So what are the age limits that you had for your expeditions? Have you led any expeditions? For deaf participants, any age limits? Lauren. I think it depends. If it's a 3-day trip, it's a small snowshoeing trip or something, then yeah, even like middle school age would probably be fine. Probably 11 through 18. For a 6-week-long expedition, maybe 14 to 18, maybe 18 and up. Rupert? I was a little confused by that question because I see deaf and hearing participants, they should be able to have the same age range. What's the difference between deaf and hearing participants? So I feel like that might be a little silly question. Yeah, that is true. That's true. Can we get some clarification maybe? Rupert, did you want to say something? It depends. I was like 10 or 12 when I did a team building. But like 20 or 21 participants if I had another person with me. I think it depends on what age the group is, but really any ages are welcome. It doesn't really matter how old you are, really. There's something for you. Another person asked, what would you recommend to review and learn for deaf participants so that they can have a better experience in outdoor expeditions? Exposure, some immersion to sign language would be helpful. Learning how to approach deaf people, learning the basics of communicating with a deaf person is a key. If you get those 3 before you have an expedition, it'll make it a lot easier. If you're learning those as you get there or not at all, you might have some difficulty. Rupert, I think it's important that let me back up actually. I noticed that a lot of organizations are working on increasing accessibility and diversity. So during those things, when those things are happening, we have a lot of cultural experts out here in the field, and it needs to trickle out further. So if we're serious about increasing the deaf and hard of hearing community outdoors, we need to maybe have a whole group of them and like make a whole list and like really strategize on what techniques work the best in backcountry environments, and maybe have some sort of directory, some sort of focus group that can really work on that and exchange information for different expeditions that happen. Because of that, some interpreters feel like the outdoor education interpreting is not really a viable career because of how limiting it can be. It's fun to do once in a while, but there's not enough expeditions that go out there. Really, the truth is there's tons of expeditions. There's just not a lot of communication in this field. Okay, so I've noticed a common question so far relating to outdoor interpreting. 2 people have asked. So one person said, do you know if Outward Bound or NOLS, any of those organizations, are they looking for those who are experts in outdoor interpreting? Do they have any training for that? I noticed the outdoors, especially interpreting, it's not really something that's widely talked about. Do you guys know any professional outdoor interpreting trainings or programs? Does NOLS or Outward Bound know to look for those interpreters, or anybody who has experience in that specific field? Any comments pertaining to that? I know, Rupert, yourself, you're a certified deaf interpreter, so I'm wondering if you know anything. I'm not sure if we have a outdoor interpreting specialty. I know a lot of interpreters who enjoy the outdoors and are thrilled to go on interpreting expeditions in the outdoors, but they don't have enough experiences to make that their career, their primary interpreting field. And oftentimes there's a small pool of really hardy interpreters who like the outdoors. But new interpreters trying to get into that, it can be difficult. They're kind of cliquey. So I know 2 or 3 interpreters in Alaska at the time who are willing, but the challenge is the money. And like Rupert said, it's not really a profession. Also, learning the outdoor common signs can be challenging. So like across different organizations, there's a lot of signs that we use. Like for example, for whitewater rafting or for rock climbing, there's very specific lingo that you use. How many interpreters know all of that lingo? Not many. It's like interpreters need to be re-educated. They learn a bunch of new things. They may have the foundation, but they have to come out. Like, how do you rock climb? They have to learn roping, belaying, all these different unique signs that go into each portion of outdoor education. Lauren, were you going to say anything? Okay. So interpreting for expeditions is one of the most intensive interpreting assignments that you can accept as an interpreter. It's an all day and all night assignment, and you're completely vanished from your life in the front country with your family and your friends. It's a huge commitment. So we have to build a pool, a larger pool of interpreters who are willing to take turns and share that responsibility, because some people can't just live in the backcountry permanently. You're right. The signs that are very specific to each part of outdoor education are very specific and challenging to learn. The conditions of camp life, that's another very important and overlooked thing. Oftentimes interpreters are like, yeah, I love to hike, I love to go outdoors, but do you understand how to camp? Do you know how to camp well? Camp culture, being on an expedition, it can be jarring and a totally new experience to learn on the fly. Also the money, the funding, pay. When I was at NOLS, oftentimes they would, okay, you interpret for this, and then you can go on an expedition on your own in the future for free. But if you really look at the cost for an expedition course and the cost of interpreting, that's not fair. It's not an equivalent payment. So interpreters don't really find that motivating or interesting as an offer of payment. Lauren, did you want to say something? I remember I had one experience with the OLP that I was on when I was doing the rock climbing instructing. The interpreter had actually never experienced rock climbing before. They knew the words, or I knew the words, but they had to do so many revisions on their signing for all the specific rock climbing words, and I had to take them aside and give them a crash course of rock climbing signs. What are the right signs for terminology that they use in English? And I had to do a very, very quick crash course. And then moving forward, that was better. But really, interpreters should know those things and be exposed to that information before they come into that assignment. For rock climbing, for whitewater rafting, anything that's a more intensive and terminology specific activity compared to like hiking, where you have a lot less terminology specific signs. So that could be part of interpreters' CCU credits every year. So continuing education, they could do some sort of continuing education in outdoor interpreting and terminology. That's like a thought. A lot of them have to do some sort of thing. Rupert, I thought that CorpsTHAT actually had done some extensive outdoor interpreting or outdoor ASL education, right? STEM, STEM dictionary. So scientists and deaf people in those STEM fields, they make blogs about words that aren't often used outside of the field. The same idea can be applied to outdoors. We have a lingo that's not commonly used by people who aren't in the field, so we could make some sort of dictionary for that as well. Sam, I will say that there is an agency that is up and coming called the Trailblazing Interpreters Agency. That's where we personally use our interpreters for this webinar and for all of our events. They were founded because we've wanted to select interpreters who've had experience outdoors, either in conservation or internships. So that's one agency, and CorpsTHAT works closely with them. Just so you guys know, we're starting that. So that's one thing that's in the right direction. So could NOLS and Outward Bound contact those? Could they contact Trailblazing interpreters? Sam, yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I have people working behind the scenes to type out those names for you guys. So soon we're gonna wrap up, but do you guys have any idea with how we can pay interpreters? How especially a small nonprofit outdoor organization could afford interpreters? Do you guys have any thoughts about that? Interpreting can be really expensive. Any solutions? Obviously, we can't find a solution right in this moment, but just any thoughts? I think the federal government has a lot of money, lots of grants, assistance, financial aid. It's very possible that you could find some sort of federal funding that could assist you guys in getting an interpreter, especially for a small organization. Colleges like Gallaudet, maybe they should start a fund specifically for that purpose. That's a thought. Rupert, I think the concept of universal accessibility, how deaf consumers can be a part of that, would really enrich the whole group. What do they bring to the table? So I think that concept of maybe the organization should look at making a commitment on an annual funding goal for accessibility, like have that be a line in their budget. Anybody with a disability, it doesn't have to be just deaf people. So when the need arises, they're not grabbing from other funding. They already have funding planned out for that. So that would be a commitment to diversity fund and equity. That's something that they could do to get money for interpreting. So we have one more question. We're actually past time. We're at 9:05 p.m. right now, but let's do one more. It's like you guys are playing bingo and we're rolling the balls in the jug and picking one out. Who's going to be lucky? One person did ask specifically to Anthony, your instructors who can sign, who are they? Could you contact them and give us some names of those instructors who can sign? I can, going back, hold on. I can go back and grab that email from those email chains and see if I still have their contact information. They would be through NOLS. So we have a lot of questions. You guys can always email us, contact any one of these panelists. This is an ongoing discussion, absolutely. So our goal is not to just finish this at this discussion. Here, we are looking for ways constantly to partner with organizations and increase accessibility to this experience for deaf people. Any last thoughts, final thoughts, pieces of wisdom for people, hearing people in the outdoor industry who know nothing about deaf people, or deaf people who are really, really motivated and interested in joining outdoor expeditions? Do you guys have any tidbits for them? Keep it short and sweet, please. Lauren. For those who are deaf, don't be afraid to do it. Just do it. For deaf people who want to participate in the outdoor industry, don't give up. you'll make it through. Sometimes you have to be the first one to break through and be a trailblazer for the rest of the community. Don't give up. Anthony? My simple tidbit is patience. We have had a long way getting here, and we have a long way to go. And like you said, this doesn't stop just at the panel. Adjustments and changes actually have to be made, and steps, baby steps, unfortunately, have to be taken. It takes a long time to get there. My short comment is abundance of mind. There's not a scarcity. There's so much out there that we can have, those connections that we can make together. And my second one, for those who are deaf, you may notice many comments about barriers, but for myself, without barriers, it wouldn't have been as life-changing as it was. So I really appreciate everybody who was in the outdoor industry and committed and pulling up their sleeves and working really hard to increase accessibility in this field. And I'm hoping for continued improvements. Thank you all. Thank you, panelists, for coming tonight. It's really an honor to be facilitating this panel discussion. I want to say thank you to REI for sponsoring this event. We really thank them. And thank you to Trailblazing Interpreters for providing interpreters who know the outdoors tonight. And please consider donating to CorpsTHAT. We are a small nonprofit organization run by volunteers. So please donate to us if you're interested in donating. Follow us too at CorpsTHAT on Instagram, Facebook, other social media platforms. We're going to email all these participants tonight for a survey fill out. So go ahead and keep an eye out for that email. All right, thank you guys so much for joining me tonight. It was really a pleasure, and I hope you guys enjoyed yourselves. Thank you guys. Have a great night.